My name is Rick Rossow. I hold the Wadhwani Chair in U.S. India Policy Studies at CSIS. India is often seen as an outlier in terms of global trade integration. Prime Minister Modi's own protectionist trade instincts that we've seen exhibited in important policy matters ever since he took office 6 years ago have only reiterated this belief. U.S. India trade ties, in fact, have been filled with tensions because of this. Modi's own protectionism, increased customs duties, import substitution rules have been countered by trade steps taken by the United States, both globally as well as those steps directly, particularly at India, such as revocation of India's GSP benefits. Now, with COVID, we've actually seen that, in fact, trade ties are perhaps a bit more deep than are sometimes superficially recognized. Areas like information technology services, where India is a crucial back office to the United States and to the world, India's importance as a cog in the global supply chain of pharmaceuticals, as well as India's importance as an export market for U.S. oil and gas. So suddenly these areas have become a lot more prominent, and India's importance as a trade partner has been somewhat amplified. Now, we've seen in COVID perhaps the beginnings of a new, more positive agenda rather than the frictions that we've seen in recent years. There's 4 areas in particular that I think our governments are going to need to pay extra attention to prepare for the next pandemic or, in fact, a resurgence of COVID. Number one is in terms of cross-border services. What does India's own data protection rules that they're looking at in Parliament right now mean for the supply of cross-border services? Having multiple options, multiple jurisdictions as pandemics sweep across the world is going to be very important. And if India starts looking at data protections in a way that limit India's ability to enter global data supply chain, that could really harm India's IT services market. Second is on workplace security. Similar to what I mentioned before on IT services, when suddenly India's IT majors have to give every employee a laptop and tell them to go home and work for a few weeks, what happens on physical security and indeed digital security when suddenly the same kind of applications and the same kind of critical data are being held and maintained and managed at home rather than in a secure workplace environment? Third is our respective definitions of essential services. As both the United States and India initiated lockdowns in their economy, making sure that areas we considered important, maybe India didn't, that supply chains could remain open is going to be very important. Even if we can't come up with similar definitions of essential services, making sure we have a way to mesh those up and keep product moving is going to be important. And fourth is on smart infrastructure. Some of the world's worst fears about what COVID would mean for potential massive power outages and things like that haven't really come to pass. But making sure that our infrastructure networks are responsive, adaptive, that they can self-heal when necessary, especially as governments look to outlay major capital in infrastructure to try to restart the economy, smart infrastructure and sharing best practices is going to be very important. Well, we're still deeply in the COVID mess, and so we have a long way to work ourselves out. But on the other side, I do hope that some of the learnings about trade ties and what happens during a pandemic, weaknesses and strengths, could provide a bit more of a positive area for discussions and help to avert, I think, what has become a rising trade war between the United States and India.